Whoopah! Whoopah!
What up, Roundup Gang? This is a video where we're going to put a little bit more emphasis on the cinema of Cinema Toy Box. And someone actually commented asking if we're going to do some Indiana Jones stuff. So I thought, well, heck, let's just go see the movie and talk about that to get us started off. So I'm here with my wife.
Hi.
Would you like me to say your name? Wife.
Yeah, you can.
This is my wife, Chloe. You might see her in the comments sometimes. She does interact. She also gives my videos a little thumbs up here and there.
Yeah.
And so...
Big supporter.
Yes.
Biggest supporter.
Yes.
Watch out.
Yes. Get yourself someone who supports your little hobbies. As silly as they may be, but...
Could be worse.
Yes. I also wanted to mention, stick around till the end of the video. I do have a little bit of extra review that's arguably more important than the movie review itself. So this is just kind of, we have some notes. Both of us have some notes on what we want to talk about. I'm a huge Indy fan. I got the Raiders poster right there. As you can see, I got a hat on my head, hat here. Several hats in my room, and there's just Indiana Jones stuff all over the place, you know, kind of scattered throughout. So we'll get into some spoilers later. But to start us off, I thought the beginning was really awesome. Just the prologue. We'll start with the prologue.
Agreed.
I actually really love that it just throws you in a really awesome, high-intensity, very classic Indiana Jones scene.
It did get started right off the bat.
Yeah, it was really good. The beginning was awesome. What do you think about the de-aging effect on Harrison Ford?
I mean, it was good. It was one of the best that I've seen so far, but I know like certain videos I've seen talking about de-aging, it can be really difficult to match like the movement of a face. So you could really tell when like expressions were made that they weren't quite what a normal face would look like, but still really good compared to like other movies that I've seen.
Yeah. I thought there were some scenes where the de-aging face looked very convincing.
Yeah.
And I actually think the scenes where the lighting was a little bit more harsh and there was like more shadows cast on the faces where it looked a lot better.
Yeah.
And when it first is introduced, there's a very prominent, I guess you could say, just front-facing light because someone's holding a flashlight. And
that's when you really realize like,
yeah, it's kind of where...
that's not him.
Yeah. That's actually, to me, when it looks the worst. But when they had more dynamic lighting, it looked really good.
It did. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the very beginning, and the fact that they make it look so good during everything going on is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so huge fan of the beginning. The de-aging had some moments where it actually looked pretty bad, but the times where it looked good, it looked really good. Yeah. The only thing that I would say is Harrison Ford, you know, looks young, but he still has his very raspy old voice.
Yeah, they did keep his older voice. It was kind of like didn't really match.
Yeah, they should have.
But it was still indie, so.
Yeah, thought that was great. Opening scene's fantastic. Soon after that, kind of what happens later, you know, you kind of get introduced to a grumpier Indiana Jones, and I definitely want to hear your opinion on this, but I want to say first off, it's kind of believable. You know, yeah. I know it seems like kind of a trope, or I don't know if trope's the right word, but where all the old heroes are kind of grumpy former shells of themselves. But the reason they give it and the time period that this takes place, you know, you kind of believe that that's how it would play out. You know, it seemed like the story behind it, which obviously I can't say till the spoilers, but I think it's one of the more believable grumpy shells of the formal hero that they give. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think once it was explained what had happened leading up to the moment in time that we were in, his personality and demeanor made a lot more sense. It was just kind of like this aha moment. I even wrote it down because I was like, okay, yeah, now I see why he is the way he is throughout the beginning of the movie, in his older age.
Yeah. And it isn't done in a very harsh way. Like, again, it's done, I think, tasteful.
Yeah, there's a really funny scene that is just very reminiscent of an older person, but it added some comedic relief to it, kind of that funny side of Indiana Jones, but also portraying the sad old man that he was, or the angry old man that he was.
Yeah. So overall, with that, the way Indy is seen in this movie, I think it's actually pretty good. I think it was done very tasteful. So the beginning is awesome. The middle is pretty good. There's some really good action scenes. I wanted to specifically mention the parade scene. Actually, I thought was really cool. So the action scenes, I think James Mangold and his team did really good as far as making it look like the time period it was in.
Yeah, all of the setting and the costumes and everything was pretty authentic to the time period of each, when they go back and forth or whatever.
Yeah, it looked, they say this looks like, it looks like it was taking place in 1969. The wardrobe looked great. The background, I don't know, I guess you could say the color palette they used. It wasn't like too much to where it's like, okay, this is just, they're making it look vintage for the sake of it to look vintage. I was like, yeah, it was set up great. Fantastic. I would say that the action scenes, like for instance, the parade, it's, obviously bigger budget. I wouldn't say bigger budget, but there's more technology than one was available back in the 80s when the original trilogy played out. So some of the scenes you're thinking, that's a lot for an Indiana Jones. And some of the things that Harrison Ford does seem a little unbelievable.
But it's Indiana Jones. You got to go back to the other movies and realize a lot of that was unbelievable. Like, I had to keep reminding myself, like, it's Indiana Jones. It's Indiana Jones. Like, he's MacGyver kind of,
Yeah, there are some things. Now, again, in my opinion, the original trilogy was a little bit more subdued in the action pieces. They were a little bit smaller scale. But then again, the technology was limited, so that's probably the most they could do. But I think it was extremely well directed. There's some, like I said, very, very good action scenes. I thought those were fantastic.
Yeah, the action scenes were really, really good.
Yeah. I want to talk about the kid. A lot of people are probably going to compare him to Short Round. What did you think about the new kid that they introduced?
He was fine. When I first was when they first introduced him, I definitely got a Short Round vibe. I think only just because I was making that connection, since it was another kid in an Indiana Jones movie. But he was fine. He was pretty helpful throughout his time with Indiana Jones and Helena. But yeah, he wasn't a Short Round at all in the grand scheme of things. He's just kind of a random kid.
Yeah. Now, it's nothing on the actor that portrayed the kid. It's just, it's hard. The original trilogy is so amazing. Temple of Doom is actually my second favorite Indiana Jones. Raiders has got my heart, I'm not gonna lie. But
is your third favorite the third one?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes,
Sorry,
it is.
Just in order.
Well, yeah, I'll talk about there's only the other two movies to mention, but we'll talk about that later. Short Round was younger. He was a lot funnier, I would say. But I can tell why they made this kid a little bit older. They use him in a way that it would not be believable if the kid was as young as Short Round.
Yeah, that's very true.
So at first I was like, man, they should have, if they wanted to do a Short Round, they should have just gone full, let's make the next Short Round. But then I was like, oh, okay, I'm seeing he did need to be a little.
His age definitely makes more sense.
Yeah.
As the movie goes on.
Now, big elephant in the room, I don't know if you want to call it that, but I'm sure there's a lot of talk about Phoebe Waller-Bridge and, her portrayal of Helena, right? Mm-hmm. I think she did good. Yeah. In the beginning, when Indiana Jones and her first get, I guess you could say, reacclimated, because it is his goddaughter, she is kind of mean, a little mean-spirited, a little bit, but it kind of explains why, and I buy it. Yeah. so that is what it is. But as the movie goes on, you start to like her a lot more, and it still feels like Indiana Jones's movie, not Phoebe Waller-Bridge's movie.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was her movie at all.
No, I think it was. I think that it was very well balanced. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, while she did a good job in the role, it wasn't like, wow, no one else could play this character other than her. I'm sure there could have been lots of actresses that could have done an amazing job too. But no, she's good.
Fine. Yeah. I mean, there were moments where I was really, really mad, but I get it's her character. But yeah, she did fine.
Now, character arc wise, I don't know if she had a very deep character arc.
No, I don't think so. It was very surface level.
Yeah, I think Indiana Jones himself is who got the biggest character arc. And we'll talk about some specifics later, but I thought his character arc was done, like I said, very tastefully. I did hear some rumors on how the movie was originally going to go with his character arc, which I was not a fan of, but the way they actually had it go down in the movie, I thought was actually pretty good. It's pretty sweet.
I got choked up.
She did.
We'll talk about that later.
I didn't. It didn't get me at all.
He had tears in his eyes.
So, the third act. The first act is awesome. The second act is okay, but there's some amazing action scenes. The third act is both really good and a little, I mean, I'd say it's actually pretty much really good. And
yeah, I really liked it.
I can't say why it was really good for me until we get into spoilers, because of a very prominent element that's used in the ending. If you know what some of my other favorite movies are, maybe you can already guess why I really liked it. But yeah, I think the ending was very interesting. I kind of wanted to see more of that type of stuff. But I totally get why they used it as much as they did.
Yeah.
And, I think they gave Indy a good ending. Now, is it the ending or the send-off as good as The Last Crusade? Absolutely not.
Not even close.
No. I mean, it doesn't get any better than literally riding off into the sunset on a horse with your father. I mean, that is like the way to end a trilogy. So you really can't outdo that, no matter what you do. Unless you ride into the sunset again, but then you're just going to get criticized for it being repetitive.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. What did you think about the third act?
I really liked it. I mean, yeah, I would have liked to see more of what you're referring to, but it does make sense when you look at the whole movie. But yeah, no, I thought the ending was really good, or the third act was really good, and I really don't have much criticism now. In the spoilers, I do.
Yeah.
But it was wrapped up really nicely compared to what it was originally supposed to be.
Yeah, and again, it's a rumor of what it was originally supposed to be, but there's a lot of evidence that there were some reshoots. So I'm thinking it's probably safe to say.
I could see where the reshoots would be too. We'll talk about that later.
Yes. So before we get into spoilers, I want to give this movie a rating. So I'm going to give this movie 3.5 whoop-ahs out of 5. How would you rate this movie? And don't forget the whoop-ah.
This is tough because it was really good. But I don't want to give it too much credit because it's just not really like the 3 original Indiana Jones. I'm gonna have to agree with you on that and give it 3.5 whoop-ahs.
Whoop-ah! That's the proper way you say it, by the way. Chandler knows best.
Yeah.
I do want to rank the movie, so I mean, my ranking is actually kind of lame because I like Raiders of the Lost Ark the best, Temple of Doom second best, Last Crusade third best.
Whoa.
But here's the twist. This one is better than Crystal Skull. I would say that's probably pretty easy to say. But it has been a while since I've seen Crystal Skull. I probably could go for a rewatch, and maybe that opinion could change. But as of right now, I'd say that this movie is, in my opinion, better than Crystal Skull. What do you rank these movies at for you?
Probably the same order, honestly. I like the original 3 in that order. Oh, but I don't know. Temple of Doom might be the first one for me, and then Raiders and Last Crusade, and then this one. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Temple of Doom as my top.
Temple of Doom is a good one. Like I know Temple of Doom gets a lot of flack for it being darker and a little bit more violent. Yet at the same time,
why I like it.
yeah. Yet at the same time, it's actually even goofier.
Yes.
So it's darker but goofier and funnier. Just a good blend. The only reason that Temple of Doom is not my favorite is it's the hat. I mean, anyway, we'll talk about that later. So that is the review, the main review. If you'd like to stick around, we're going to talk a little bit more about spoilers. Not necessarily going from beginning to end and talking about everything, but there are some small points that we wanted to talk about. So if that's the end now, you can skip to the timestamp below for the bonus review. So you could skip to see that at least. Or if you want to hear the spoilers, just stick around and watch the rest of it. So diving into the spoilers, we'll talk about first act spoilers. In the beginning, they're kind of going for, what is it, the Blade of Christ? Which I really thought that was cool because the first and third movie have, those historic but also biblical tie-ins that I think is really cool. This one almost had that. They gave it like that little bit, which I think is very Indiana Jones-esque. At least, again, the first trilogy had 2 out of 3 movies had that. I thought that was kind of cool and little neat. Obviously, that was not at all the main focus of the movie. The dial itself is pretty cool. And I think a lot of people might give this movie a little bit of criticism for the time travel element, which we'll talk more about later. But then again, every Indiana Jones movie has some kind of supernatural something in it, every single one. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's a criticism, I don't agree with it.
It's kind of silly.
Yeah, I don't agree with that criticism. They all kind of have a little supernatural. Maybe Crystal Skull is a little too far because it's aliens. But
yeah, that one was bizarre.
Yeah, but I mean, and I think that took place in the 50s, and that was when there was a lot of scare about aliens. So I guess you could say even that's period correct in a way. But you had a few things you wanted to mention about the prologue, I guess you could say.
I really like how Indiana Jones was able to kind of get past all of the World War II German soldiers on the train without going, well, for the most part, without going detected. And then the top of when they were, I'm trying to remember how they ended up on the roof.
We talking about on the train?
Yeah, on top of the train. I don't remember how they ended up there, but him and his friend Baz ended up on the top of the train, and that fight sequence with a bunch of the guys was really cool. Yeah. There's this really cool scene where he uses his whip to grab the gun that drops, and it was pretty cool. Yeah. I like that they brought that element to the movie, even though he was young, but still.
Yeah, the opening scene is very classic Indiana Jones, and you do have to suspend, again, I mean, all movies are like this. They're movies for a reason, but, the physics of how jumping on a train going that fast, I mean, if you jumped, you would just jump and then fly backwards. I mean, you would be gone.
Yeah, the believability was out the window. Yeah.
But the scene was good enough to where it really didn't matter to us, at least. We were just having a good time.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch.
Yeah, I want your opinion on this. Almost forgot to talk about this in the non-spoilers, but that's fine. Basil, it's interesting. I never like when a movie introduces a new character that we're supposed to think or supposed to believe that they were always friends with when they were never in any of the previous movies. So
he wasn't?
No.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe because I've seen him in other things that I just assumed. I
Yeah.
hadn't seen him in an Indiana Jones movie, but
No. So
okay.
Basil, played by Toby Jones, he's actually not in any of the other Indiana Jones movies, but we're made to believe they've been friends all this time, to the point where he makes Indiana Jones his goddaughter. I mean, it's fine. That's definitely one of the, I would say, a negative in the movie is they had to kind of make us believe that, and you kind of have to be like, okay, I'm just gonna believe it. And
I believed it.
yeah, and the prologue, they give them a nice setup with the prologue to show one of the old adventures, because he was obviously not in any of the other movies, so the prologue is almost necessary to make you even slightly believe that these guys have been lifetime friends, or but in my opinion, it actually probably would have made more sense to somehow make Salah be the guy who was with Indiana Jones on the train, and he appointed Indy as the godfather of his daughter, because he was literally his best friend, and he was with him in Raiders of the Lost Ark. That would have been very believable. I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because I saw them together in the first movie, and they are good friends.
Yeah, I mean, but people have multiple friends, so it's believable in a way.
Yeah.
Like we could just be introduced to different ones in every movie, which I feel like is what happens.
Yeah, I just,
You know what I mean?
it would have been I feel a deeper connection between Indy and the father of his goddaughter if it were Salah, because we had a whole movie in the 80s of their character development and their friendship, as opposed to just a 15-minute prologue, in my opinion.
It was so convincing, so I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I was convinced that they were lifelong friends with the way that they very quickly but very eloquently developed their relationship on screen.
Yeah, and it was handled well. I still agree with that.
The unaliving scenes were gnarly in this movie. They were pretty brutal.
Yes.
People getting run over by cars and hit by pew-pews on the train. A pretty crazy scene. Like, yeah. Oh, wait, I want to talk about when they go underwater to retrieve that item. I don't know what it's called. Oh,
yes.
But the...
Antonio.
Well, yeah, Antonio Banderas.
That was awesome.
Is in the movie.
Short-lived, though.
Yeah, very short-lived, but it was pretty cool to see him. But no, the scene with the eels and how it was like the snakes of the ocean.
Yeah, there's the comedy in this movie I think is pretty cool. I
found it very hilarious.
Yeah, it wasn't like too goofy. The comedy I thought worked very well. And one of the things they do is with the eels, because they're like snakes of the ocean kind of thing, and I thought that was just funny.
I was the one who made that connection. I was like, oh my gosh, they're like snakes of the sea, and he was like Indy was getting all freaked out, so it's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was fun.
I guess I just kind of want to talk about Helena a little bit more in depth.
Okay, yeah.
Now that we're in the spoilers, she was something else. From the first act to the second act, she was just very selfish. And there was a lot of bickering between her and Indy, but it made sense because of how selfish she was. I know I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, their bickering was annoying, but I don't think it was annoying. It added to the storyline for sure and some of the character arcs. But she definitely made me mad a lot. Speaking of the underwater scene, I don't know why this stuck out to me, but she grabbed the item and was going up, and there was an issue with the eels, and Indy was stuck underwater, and this girl decided to make sure this item was secure before going back and helping him. And I was like, go back and help him and then worry about it later. But she's selfish.
Yeah, but her arc is she kind of comes around, and they build a little relationship.
Yeah, she does, and it was, like I said, it was very surface level. I don't think it was super deep. I didn't get that impression. Maybe that's just me. Yeah. I still feel like she'd go steal stuff and sell it. So. Yeah,
I mean, and I guess we can just kind of get into the third act as we're talking about their relationship. I mean, you have the classic old jokes. They're not as bad as in Crystal Skull, where it's almost seemed like every 10-second Shia LaBeouf was letting us, thus the audience, know that Indiana Jones is old. But this one, there was a few things, but it made sense. It wasn't like, oh, you're old. It was more like they're making a joke about something because he's old. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I thought even that was handled a lot better. And then as for, the ending, I thought the third act was awesome. I was having a lot of fun with the third act. I loved it. And now, here's where I can mention this. I'm a huge fan of time traveling. Back to the Future is literally one of my all-time favorite movies. I got memorabilia. I own a DeLorean. I love time travel, and I love Back to the Future. And some of the...
A little too much.
Yeah, maybe a little too much. Some of the elements there I was just loving. I mean, even with movies like, what was it, Infinity War? Which is the one where they traveled through time?
I think Infinity War.
Yeah, the Avengers movie, they traveled through time. That movie went from a great movie to like top 10 just because of the fact that they time traveled and they saw other movies play out like within that movie. They witnessed like the first Avengers. It was I'm just like a kid in a candy shop when it comes to that stuff.
The Atom Project, that was another good time travel movie.
Yes.
With Ryan Reynolds.
Yes. Anything time travel just gets me giddy like a little schoolboy. But again, that was one of the reasons I thought the third act was freaking awesome. I just wanted more. Now, would that have made a good movie if they gave us more? Maybe not. But I almost wish they would have done Back to the Future 2, where Indy maybe tries to avoid young Indy and do all these things. And like I said, they might not have made a better movie, but when they gave us a taste of that time travel element, I was like, I just want more.
See, I think it would have been cool if him and his older self and his younger self teamed up to do something together. I think that would have been cool. But it makes sense why they didn't, I guess. I mean, they could have thrown it in there, but
yeah,
it was still cool either way.
Yeah, and the time period that they go back into is just like I think it was a Roman war, right? It was like 200 BC
I don't know,
or something.
Somewhere in Syracuse. I don't know what war it was.
Yeah, I totally forgot.
But something BC where Archimedes was the guy who created the Dial of Destiny. I can't remember the term they use for it. The something.
The Oculus something.
Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of cool that they went back and got to meet the creator, and some things kind of added up because they found his tomb and his bones were there with a watch, and there was a bird or a phoenix or whatever on the side of his tomb or coffin or whatever with propellers that they noticed. And so it was like, hey,
I just realized
he's traveled, yeah. And so then when they went back to that time by accident because they didn't factor in continental drift. Right, because Mads Mikkelsen's character, oh, by the way, love him.
He was awesome.
I
almost forgot to mention that.
Loved him before, love him now.
He's in Logan.
One of my favorite actors.
I love that. Yeah, he's good in this.
Anyways, there was calculations were done wrong, and then they ended up in the wrong time period because he was trying to go back to 1939 to do something wild. I kind of don't want to spoil that.
Well, this is the spoiler.
I know, but that was just like, what? What are you thinking? Basically, he wanted to unalive someone so that he could take over the war.
I would have loved to see that movie.
Win the war?
Yes, I would have loved to see
that. Would have been an
movie.
interesting thing to see play out. That would have been a good time for like Indy and young Indy and
that would have been my Back to the Future 2 dream. Indy meets Back to the Future.
But it was still cool to see when they went back. Archimedes picked up this Mads character's watch, and it was the same watch that you saw in the tomb when they found his bones. So it was pretty cool. And then obviously the airplanes with the propellers was the Phoenix with the propellers. But another funny part in that was that all the people who were fighting in the war on ground were calling the airplanes dragons, and were talking about how they needed to take down the dragons, which was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know any time travel movie that's gone that far back, so that was a treat. That was I was on the edge of my seat, and I was just relishing in that in the time travel scene. I almost So the way that it works out at the end, you almost think that they're not going to time travel at all. And I was like, oh God, don't tell me they're not going to actually end up time traveling.
I know. I was kind of worried that they weren't going to. But then stuff started to get crazy, and the age of the kid definitely comes into play in this part because he ends up flying an airplane.
Yeah.
And if he was any younger, it kind of would have been a little. I mean, it still was a little bit like, I don't know if I believe that much. But had he been younger, it really would not have worked.
I would not have believed Short Round to be able to fly a plane. Like he kind of needed to be that, I guess, tween age. I don't know
something like that.
What age that is. The ending was cool. Now the very, very end. Well, I don't, maybe not the very, very end, like the last 5 minutes, but it kind of abruptly ends a little bit. Very abrupt. That's probably why my rating is lower.
Yeah.
I mean, Indy basically wants to die there, which means his whole history would be.
Yeah, because he was shot.
Yeah. And I thought that was maybe a little much. I don't know if Indy. I mean, I get it because he's an archaeologist and he's kind of come full circle and he's old and he's witnessing history, like he said when he was laying there, which is pretty cool.
I totally get why he wanted to stay. But this is where I can tell they did the reshoots, is because it was just kind of like this dramatic, like, no, you have to come with me, da da da, and then it's like, boom, she punches him, and then they're back, and I was like, that kind of ended a little bit too fast there. It did not flow very well. So yeah, I definitely, if they did reshoot, that is exactly where they did it.
Yeah, for sure. But the final scene where you see Marion and Indiana Jones come back, I actually thought was so nice.
Yeah.
You know, I just love that Indy got a nice happy ending. You know, they didn't kill him off. Helena didn't pick up the fedora.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't a handing of the torch.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure, Helena might do some adventure later. She does want to be an archaeologist after all, which is fine. If she's her own character, that's cool. But, man, I really thought that happy ending was good. If it wasn't for that happy ending and it was just a punch and he wakes up and then they're just home, this might have been like a 3 stars. Barely 3 stars.
2.5.
Yeah, barely 3 stars.
Yeah. The fact that they brought Marion back and they kind of rekindled their love with the whole, where does it hurt? It
from Raiders.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, I was so close to crying. I got really choked up.
Yeah, it was a great scene. So,
it was.
All in all, like I said, 3.5 whoop-ahs. Whoop-ah! I would say it's above average. It's good. It's good. I would.
Better than a lot of movies that have come
Now, for the bonus review, very quick. We'll make this quick. Okay, bonus. So, I wanted to review not just the movies, but the hats. You see, every Indiana Jones has a very distinct hat. Raiders of the Lost Ark, right here. Streets of Cairo. I actually said it right this time.
You did.
I mean, it just has so much character in this hat. There's the brim's warped because they turned the hat on Harrison Ford's head before putting in the dents. So technically the hat is crooked, but it doesn't appear as though because the pinch is in the front, but the brim is warped because of it. So much character, so much detail. Best hat, easily. Temple of Doom is the worst hat.
It is really bad.
Terrible.
When he pointed out the differences, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's got the taper. I don't know what happened with that hat. Yeah. It's so boring. You just flip the front down, and then everything else is, whatever. Last Crusade, I think the hat's pretty cool. It's got a little cowboy curl, just a little bit, little classic, a little bit more boxy, but it's no Raiders. Crystal Skull is a good hat. I would say it would go Raiders, Last Crusade on the hat, Crystal Skull on the hat. It again is nothing too special, but it's got a nice boxy look, reminiscent of Raiders. The pinch isn't tight, which I don't like. I like the nice tight pinch in the front here.
Oh yeah.
But it's beaver felt, made by who made the Crystal Skull? I think it was John Penman is like the head guy in the company now, but I can't think of him. I cannot think. I kind of forgot. Now, I actually can't remember who did the Crystal Skulls, but it's Beaverfell. It's nice. And then this one was, again, Herbert Johnson. And this one's going to be my second to last. So it goes Raiders, Last Crusade, Crystal Skull, Indy 5, Dial of Destiny hat, and then lastly, Temple of Doom. I think Temple of Doom has the most boring.
It's really bad.
Boring hat. I mean, Steven Spielberg, come on, man. You're a guy of an eye of detail. You could have made sure that hat looked, given it a little bit more character. And even one scene, it was a Stetson. It looked terrible. That hat crown was like, anyway. So that's my rating on the hats. Almost all Indiana Jones but Crystal Skull used Herbert Johnson. I have a couple of those hats. This is an Ad Vintage hat, Streets of Cairo. So it's got the weathering just like that. Same with this hat right here. This is a Steele & Jones, probably my favorite. So if you stuck around for the bonus, I hope you enjoyed that little quick review of the hats. The hats are my favorite. I love the freaking hats. But
He has so many.
so many hats. Mm-hmm. But trust me, I got the jacket and everything too. But anyway, that is going to do it for this this review, Roundup Gang. If you would like us to do more reviews on certain movies, we don't want to just review anything, but Indiana Jones is one of my favorites. And I had to do something Indiana Jones,
Yeah, same with me. It reminds me of my dad, so.
There you go. Now, if maybe we'd do a little Back to the Future retrospect, leave some comments below if you think we should do more movie reviews. So give us a like, share the video if you enjoyed it, comment please, let us know what you think and what you think about this type of video. And next video we'll go ahead and go back to the little emphasis on Toy Box. This one was a little bit of cinema. So we'll see you on the next video. Appreciate you guys for being here.
Nice to meet you face to camera.
Yes.